And I decided this year I wanted to send out a couple of manuscripts and see if anybody, any real publisher would be interested in my work. And so one was a short chapbook of environmental poems, and the other was just a collection of some of my poems, and I called it Cogitation. I decided that since poetry doesn't sell very well anyway, I might as well call it whatever the hell I wanted. And cogitation literally means to think deeply about something or meditate. And so after about 6 months, I was getting a number of rejections, but then after about 6 months, I got an email from this publisher in Portland, Oregon, and they said, we really like your manuscript Cogitation. If you haven't found a publisher, we'd love to publish it. And it was called Unsolicited Press, Books Not Bullshit. And I thought, some friend is playing a trick on me. But it turned out it's a real publishing company, and they actually have a great stable of writers. And so I was thrilled that they took my manuscript on. But let me just start with a poem to give you a feeling of my take on poetry. White boy poet, decided one day to take a hike, try my poems at open mic. Strolled into the Tipsy Teapot, heard that place was really hot. Pulled together my picture words, images of things like kung fu birds. Put my name on the sign-up sheet. Then I heard a pounding beat. Next I heard some dreadlocks say, white boys come here to play. We'll just spit our rhythm and rhyme. He'll be licking his wounds in record time. When my time came spinning round, I laid out a free-form sound. Left the audience bored to a tear, not exactly what they came to hear. Then I heard a rapper say, at least he's got the guts to play. But with his shiny bald white head, he'll never have any real street cred. Other rappers then had their say, this guy's poetry will never pay. White boy needs to kick it up, give his poems a power tune-up. After that night, I vowed to return, to knock 'em down and watch 'em burn. So I've been studying my rhythm and rhyme to slam 'em down in 4/4 time. Thank you. I'll just cover up my bald white head. So that was in an earlier book, but I want to give you another poem that'll give you a feeling for me. And I decided one of the big problems with poetry is the descriptions that poets write of their books. They're so boring. And so I decided, what if a romance writer wrote a description for my book? What would it sound like? So I started reading these descriptions of romance novels and books, and lifted some phrases from it and applied it to my poetry. Hot copy. Poetry book blurbs are so boring. In stark contrast, romance writers make their cover copy sizzle. Consider how they might describe my poetry. Sam Love is an alpha male who loves fishing, donuts, and obsessed heroes. His poetry specializes in over-the-top, sweet and cheesy metaphors that don't take all year to understand. If you want something short and sporting a hot cultural twist, the Love Man's poetry is for you. His sweet as pie similes will make 50 Shades of Grey seem like a children's primer. They're as hot as Texas heat, and they'll make sparks fly like a red-hot welding torch. Blessed with the name Love, his sexy and steamy lines will leave you licking your lips for more hot poetry. Let's see, where's that one? Oh, so just lay back with this brooding alpha hero and savor his sweet rhythms and let them ignite your aging organs. As you contemplate his metaphors, get ready for a roller coaster ride, because love is one linguistically hot poet ready to lasso your mind and turn your world upside down. Thank you. So we're in a strange period right now, and I think actually there's a resurgence of interest in poetry, and I think it's because poets can use the language to help us redefine our consciousness. And I think rap has also helped build an audience for poetry. But here's one of my poems commenting on that. Viva la poetry. Cultural darkness now moves like a lunar eclipse over the broken landscape. In obscure corners of the digital realm, you can hear the primal screams of poets shouting their didactic rants, unshackled from opaque verbal puzzles so loved by poetry professors. Fighting back requires a clarity of language to untangle the conscious and unconscious knots of racism, sexism, homophobia. Listen carefully to the embattled voices of angry poets reconstituting our shattered dreams. The perfect holiday meal. Planning the meal required great care until relatives created a cook's nightmare. RSVPs came back with emails to heed. Every individual's unique dietary need. The vegetarians asked for no meat, so that spared a turkey the oven heat. We planned to toast with eggnog until the lactose intolerant wanted no dairy-based grog. So next we considered fresh fish, hoping it would make a pleasing main dish. A distant uncle, worried about his ticker, became a real nuisance, that old stickler. I could hear the cook's blood-curdling shriek at the request of nothing with fins, face, or beak. Then the exasperated cook let out a sigh, saying at least there's fresh pumpkin pie. Until the next phone call added a request, please nothing with sugar at my behest. That left only the homemade rolls on a list that once resembled a scroll. Then a great aunt said, prepare for me a meal without wheat, a meal gluten-free. Finally, one day we gathered at the table for the meal that's now a family fable. The chef did his best to please every critic, serving a single fruit salad free of anything acidic. There are actually a few people here that have come to my yoga class, and I appreciate that because there are now 52,746 yoga teachers registered with Yoga Alliance, so it's no longer a lonely field. And I get to see a lot of different types of yoga pants, and so I wrote a poem that's a tribute to the styles of yoga pants. This was actually published in Flying South out of Winston-Salem. Defying gravity. From hatha to happy hour, the miracles of spandex, lycra, and cotton are ready to let your love shine through and create the illusion of working out without moving a muscle. The universal sound of Om can tingle your inner thighs and expand your mind and body with pants designed to tighten the sags and flatter your silhouette. So comfy, soft and sexy, there's a design for every taste. Nondescript blacks and grays for the muted look. Skulls and peace symbols for standing out while working out. Tie-dyes and camo patterns for vanishing the dreaded butt dimple. Speed the transition from self-consciousness to consciousness by diverting wandering eyes away from your booty with colorful downward arrows creating the perfect skin-tight detour. In this age of chasing more, yoga pants are the perfect fashion for women to reveal a little less of everything. Now, it's been very cold lately, and we live in a house from 1900 built downtown. And this cold really could was a challenge to be in an old house. So this is a poem called Spring Hallucinations. Oh, the joys of an old house with drafts that chill your bones, refrigerate your bare head, and lull your brain into standby. Winter winds whistle through every tiny opening around windows, outlets, floorboards. The ancient heating unit labors to fight the draft by cranking out so many BTUs. Global warming becomes a great idea. Outside, the snowy cold is so brutal, any thoughts of winter romance freeze under layered blankets, leaving hallucinations of a spring thaw. Now I'm going to let Carole read a couple of poems, and I'll come back and we're going to sort of share this. Carole?
You all know what a burqa is. It's this huge black or brown piece of material that covers a woman and makes her look like a whale. And there's a little slit here. This is what is worn in certain very religious Middle Eastern countries. This is called, well, this is Sam's take on burqa blues. You have to wonder what's happening as eyes peer through burqa slits to watch Western women shoulder automatic rifles and hot rod armored vehicles. The Quran instructs men that, quote, good women are therefore obedient, guarding the unseen as Allah has guarded. And those on whose part you feel desertion, admonish them, leave them alone in their sleeping places, and beat them. Long after our troops have withdrawn, images of Western warrior women may smolder behind the burqas, making egos tremble at the cultural revolution about to shatter their isolated world. To speed the revolution, our drones should start book bombing walled courtyards with Arabic translations of feminist literature. The Feminine Mystique, The Second Sex, The Vagina Monologues, The Female Eunuch, because so many Muslim women have never been allowed in schools. Illiterate eyes may fall on some pages, but enough will catch the feminist spirit to stir a cultural revolution that will shake Mohammed's grave. This one is called Highway Dreams. Parallel to the manicured 4-lane, a narrow 2-lane road snakes past gravel entrances to broken dreams. Rusted gas pumps sit idle with mechanical numbers frozen in a time when a gallon of regular sold for 99 cents. Rickety wooden stands of fresh picked vegetables and fruits sit empty, abandoned by farmers bankrupted by Walmart's foreign produce. Faded hand signs announce antiques and mountain curios, once lovingly crafted by locals who never called themselves artisans. A neon-filled electric sign will never blink on again, announcing the cafe is open with hot coffee and fresh-baked pies. These buildings, the peeling paint, rotting wood, broken windows, stand as historical monuments to a local person's broken dreams. An independent country dream of owning your own business before the interstate stole customers now flying past at 70 miles an hour.
So I think almost everybody here lives in New Bern. And I was going in to teach my yoga class downtown one Monday night, and I saw 7 orange-robed Buddhist monks coming out of the Pepsi store. I didn't have a camera, but I thought maybe I can create the image with poetry. New Bern Shrine, a splash of orange catches my eye as a half-dozen bald Buddhist monks exit the historic district's sacred shrine, Pepsi-Cola's drugstore birthplace. Each of these purveyors of ancient wisdom lovingly cradled a 16-ounce cup of Pepsi. With each sip of the addictive liquid, their lips curled into a satisfying smile. Taking a break from meditation, perhaps they even found a path to enlightenment in the cola's old slogans. Pepsi, exhilarating, invigorating, and aids digestion. Pepsi, more bounce from the ounce. Pepsi, the soft drink leaves you brighter than it found you. Still, one has to wonder if the vivacious ad models offering a tempting and tasty break tempted the celibate monks. We were just talking earlier about the whole issue of trying to publicize something now because people are just so busy and there's so much going on. And this really concerns me with children also. And so this is a poem that I wrote about that. It's called Restoring Consciousness. Liberate your mind, cut the cable, de-dish the dish, celebrate the off switch. Imagine a world where producers don't addict us 24 hours a day to blood, gore, and sex. A world where children aren't bombarded with 250,000 violent images before the age of 18. A world of natural stimulation, of chirping birds, fire orange sunsets, and star-speckled night skies. A world of natural stimulation. We did that one. Buddhists imagine the mind a cage of chattering monkeys where meditation can open the creaky cage door to let the monkeys escape. Meditation, leaving the mind so quiet, the resonance of past lives will whisper in our ears. Okay. If any of you are gardeners, you know that sensation of getting that first tomato off the vine as opposed from the grocery store. Viva la tomato. With hints of seasonal warmth, the tiny seeds break open in the small peat pots, signaling the emerging spring. Soon the seedlings can be lovingly placed into the garden soil, nourished with compost, crab shells, and rock phosphate. As the calendar pages turn, yellow blooms explode on green stems until, like magic, the flowers transform into miniature green tomatoes. When spring gives way to summer heat, the fruitlings grow in diameter until hints of red, yellow, orange announce a culinary reward. When fully ripened, the sharp knife's first slice creates an olfactory explosion, ready to titillate the tongue. The deep red slices stand as a revolutionary counterpoint to factory-farmed imposters, oozing with impotent taste. Okay, thank you. So, just had my 71st birthday and really haven't paid a lot of attention to the healthcare system until I turned 70. Then I've had to start dealing with it. And so I thought more about, that whole issue of the dreams you have when you're younger and then what happens to them. So I wrote a poem about that. R.I.P. bucket list. Like a ghost, my bucket list of dream items haunts my final countdown. Once I laid out some rich fantasies, a grand cross-country RV trip, a coast-to-coast poetry reading, fly fishing in an Alaskan stream, restoring a Studebaker Golden Hawk. At first, my bucket list just sprang a small leak as my real estate nest egg cracked, like Humpty Dumpty's autopsy. Then the diminished dreams turned into a steady stream as the stock market started down and medical costs started up. But maybe the bucket list didn't really matter because travel is now a pain in the butt with traffic snarls, high gas prices, and cracks in my back that sound like 4th of July fireworks. So I'll just put the bucket list out of sight and out of mind and move it to a safe place with a plan to recover it when I win the lottery. The acceptance rate with poetry magazines is about 2% of what they get submitted. So, and this publisher that accepted my book and has brought it out, their acceptance rate's also 2%. So this, and I think the key is to find the right niche for your poetry. The first poem that I had accepted was really about taking the images used to promote rescuing dogs and applying them to Match.com to improve your social profile. And it turned out the person reading the poems loved rescue dogs, so that's why it got accepted for publication.
You never know.
So this is trying to find the right audience. Seeking out. My maleness roams the internet seeking a home for my poetic diatribes. Clearly, I'd have more options if I fit into a more hip category. Hashtag queer only seeks work from queer identified writers. Upper Rubber Boot limits its call to those who identify as female, non-binary, or marginalized sex. Others only want pieces from gender non-conforming or non-heteronormative writers. I can't even imagine the slush pile soliciting love poems from asexuals. After multiple searches, I have found my niche. Oregon now officially recognizes non-binary. So I am one half of the binary category ensconced in an evolving trisexual world. And okay, so what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Carole. She'll read a couple more, and then I'll come back, and then we'll go have some refreshments.
This is a poem that we can all perhaps relate to if we're on Facebook. It's called Photoshop for the Soul. Up pops a Facebook profile with a lovely new photo showing a friend's complete makeover. New hair color, new glasses, and an angelic smile. An airbrushed, blemish-free skin exudes a youthful countenance only possible with the optical magic wielded by a deft Photoshop hand. In her online neighborhood, this makeover signaled a wonderful rebound from her mapless detours through the land of shadows. In her new Facebook fairy tale, happiness surrounds her. Holiday meals are perfect. Children are well dressed, and romantic love blossoms. Only those in the real world could suspect how close she danced to the edge and still barely clings to reality by a thread. These pixel touch-ups can improve the digital facade, but unfortunately, there's no Photoshop for the beleaguered soul. And this poem is called The Last Laugh. So consider. Imagine the sex life of bacteria. No cumbersome courting for a mate. Just every 10 minutes they can split their single cell in two. Then two will split into four. As masters of rapid adaptation, they can flourish in hellish places. acidic hot springs, barren soil, brackish water, radioactive waste, and the human gut. In our body, we have 10 times more bacteria than cells. Probiotics are the good ones, and germs are the bad ones. Plain soap could do the job, but instead we use antibacterials to cleanse counters, sterilize food, and sanitize the baby's butt. Antibacterials only kill 99%, so you have to wonder about the other 1%. Are they planning a counterattack with super-resistant germs? If they could do a belly laugh, they'd be doubling over because the real joke's on us humans who think we rule the world.
Velcro dog. With great literary flourish, the ads for rescue dogs help abandoned, lonely pets find a human forever home, as if any of us lives forever. Redford, a mixed something or other, becomes a big, handsome boy who is perfect, who's the perfect mate for Sasha, an elegant lady with a gentle personality. Clarence, the Velcro dog, will stick by your side, and Rusty the stray could become your forever friend and follow you anywhere. Human eligibles on computer dating sites could learn a lot from the dog ads, where a chunky girl with a soft coat is transformed into a snuggle companion who isn't very demanding. And an aging male becomes the pick of the pack, who is over his puppy stuff and ready to crawl under the covers on the day he is up for it. Thank you. So the interesting thing about the poem is almost every phrase in there came from actual reading dog ads. So, at some point I realized I'd written more poems about my dog than my wife. And so I set out to write a love poem. Didn't quite come out like I expected, but she loves it anyway. Yin Yang Love. I chuckle at TV's singles ads suffering. Let me start over. I chuckle at TV's singles ads offering to search their database for a mate with my same interest. A computer match program would have never put us together. We are so different, you and I. You accept God. I struggle with the big question. You love meticulous order. I find creativity in chaos. You love people in books. I love people at parties. You balance your checkbook. I hope the bank gets it right. Only the Eastern yin-yang concept can explain our 30 years together. Yin-yang, an ancient Chinese symbol of black and white opposites intertwining to create a unity. Computers could never calculate a whole from universal opposites, light and dark, hot and cold, fire and water, masculine and feminine, life and death. That's why you'll never see a dating ad featuring opposite magnetic poles rushing toward each other to mate like lustful lovers. Still, the real mystery for me is how you decided to take a chance on us. Now, actually, there's a person in the audience this applies to. She said, "This describes my relationship perfectly. We're having an anniversary party. Can you come read it?" And so I grew up in a small town in Alabama, and I was going back to the reunion, and somebody asked me if I'd write a poem for the reunion. And so I started thinking about what it was like in 1965 in a small town in Alabama. And so this is the poem that came out of that. Yellow Jacket proud. In 1965, gasoline cost 35 cents a gallon, a new Mustang sports car, $2,400, a new house, $13,000. In 1965, male hormones raged as miniskirts rose to new heights, topped by towering bouffant hair. In 1965, 45 RPM Big Hole Records sounded the Beatles' call for help. And the Beach Boys seduced us with California sun and surf. In 1965, Vietnam seemed far away from a sleepy Alabama town where parents left the house for real jobs in local factories. And on weekends, our old cars could cruise the Dairy Dream, a hangout that served Alabama health food, French fries, Cokes, and hamburgers, all washed down with splashes of black market bourbon. Looking back, Aliceville seemed like a Norman Rockwell town where doctors made house calls. The Palace Theater featured Saturday matinees, and boys could skinny dip with no concern for fashion until prom night, when we dressed in sports coats, white shirts, and ties to escort our dates in colorful dresses that overflowed car seats. Aliceville's Main Street shut down for the homecoming parade, where the team mascot, a yellow jacket crafted of crepe paper and chicken wire, could sting rival York's Jaguars. Looking back, 1965 high school seemed like a golden era of youthful optimism for graduates, where tomorrow would be ours for the taking. Then the music got louder, the draft gambled with our future, marijuana muddled our thinking, busing ripped apart neighborhoods, and factories started closing. But for those who grew up in this once upon a time Alabama town, high school strengthened us to take life's punches and stand up yellow jacket proud. So, thank you. Okay, this is the final poem I'm going to read, and then we'll adjourn to the other room. Our legacy, as obsolescence rules the market, permanence becomes a museum exhibit. Native American potters must be smiling, knowing their earthen art will outlast our digital legacy. Still, our legacy will be secure in mounds of disposables no one can repair and nature cannot degrade. So thank you for coming out.